And for more on this, Eric, we're going to bring in now Bridget Bowman. She's the politics reporter for Roll Call. And let's start right here, Bridget. With several Republican leaders speaking out against Roy Moore, do you think President Trump will call Moore and ask him to step down?
That's a really interesting question. And if he does, that will certainly likely have an impact on the race. He has said that he believes that Judge Moore would step down if the allegations are true. Will he take that a step further? That's yet to be seen. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that.
And if the president does or does not make the call, what's the boomerang effect for the president?
Well, in terms of obviously he's facing pressure from all of these Republican leaders with the National Party who are similarly calling on Moore to step down if the allegations are true. The real question here is, what is the impact in Alabama? What are voters there thinking, and how are they going to respond to all of this news?
I want to play some sound from Roy Moore yesterday out campaigning. Let's take a listen.
These attacks involve a minor, and they're completely false and untrue about something that happened nearly 40 years ago. But more than being completely false and untrue, they're very hurtful to me personally.
And that is Roy Moore denying the allegations. Still, as you well know, Bridget, that last week the National Republican Senatorial Committee cut ties with Moore's campaign. Will his campaign donations start to dry up?
Well, we actually heard, I spoke with the campaign's general consultant, Brett Doster, on Friday. He told me that the campaign had raised over $100,000 since the Washington Post story had published. So he was arguing that they were seeing growing support, that their backers were coming to their aid. It'll be interesting to see, though, if other outside groups start to break away from Moore and if that could impact his fundraising.
And meanwhile, of course, this is the talk of the town, if you will. Not the same town, but Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland on Fox News Sunday talking about this very subject.
Look, we all know that Alabama is a very tough state politically for Democrats, but this is a special situation where we have a great candidate. On the other hand, you have a very, very flawed candidate in Roy Moore.
So a Democratic opponent, Doug Jones, would be the first Democrat elected to the Senate in Alabama in more than 20 years. And even if Alabama voters, Bridget, couldn't stomach voting for a Democrat, they could stay home. And if, in fact, they no longer support Roy Moore, which we don't know, but how would low turnout affect that race?
Right. That's a really good point, and that's key to understanding this race. So this is a special election in December. There are no other races on the ballot. As one Republican strategist and a Democrat strategist in the state note, that Republicans don't have other races that will cause them to turn out. So that's correct. Some people are hypothesizing that Republicans who don't want to support Roy Moore would just stay home. Important to note, too, that as Senator Van Hollen noted, Democrats acknowledge that this is a tough state for Democrats to win. A couple strategists have told me that they really need a perfect storm to develop here for them to have any chance of winning the state, but they do think that one is kind of brewing at this point.
More broadly, Bridget, how might the results of this race affect GOP support from millennials and independents?
That's a very interesting question. Well, I think it'll be interesting to see how the party responds. If Judge Moore wins, there's an open question as to whether or not Senate leadership will accept him in the Senate or expel him. It'll be interesting to see kind of how they navigate that question. Judge Moore was never expected to be an ally of Senate leadership, but we'll have to see sort of how they react, especially with all of these Republican senators questioning whether he should even stay in the race at this point.
Bridget Bowman, I have to leave it there. Nice to talk to you. Take care.